back to Questions for Dad. Today, I'm joined by someone who has played a big role in my journey, Nahn Nguyen. He's an avid conservationist, a mentor, and someone who's dedicated his life to the outdoors and educating others. He worked for the Tennessee Wildlife Federation, where he helped people like me learn about conservation, hunting, and the importance of protecting our natural resources. In this episode, we're talking about more than just the outdoors, though. We're diving into life lessons, how to grow as a man, how to handle failure, build confidence, and what it really means to be a good man. Nahn has a lot of wisdom to share, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Nahn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Asaya. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
I'd like to start off real quick by you just kind of telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Let's see. I immigrated here to the U.S. in 1975. So this year marks my 50th anniversary of my immigration from Vietnam. I was sponsored by the church. Uh, Met my wife in the seventh grade at that church. Married at the church where I grew up. So I have a long history, there at the church, and my faith is very strong. I am very pragmatic, so I'd like to think there's good in everyone. But we do live in a society and a time where there's a lot of bad influences. So that's one of the main reasons why I mentor youth and young people. Um, and I do have a soft spot when it comes to youth and the outdoors. I guess that's uh, how you and I met, really, back a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute now, probably 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy how time flies. So, we're going to hop kind of right in. I know you mentioned conservation and loving teaching in it, and my first big question will be just kind of that. What first got you interested in conservation, and what made it so important to you?
Well, when I was growing up, I had an uncle, a mentor. He was like an uncle to me, Uncle Kang, and he was also an immigrant. And Dad always worked, two, three jobs. He worked day and night, supporting us when we first came to America. And of course, Dad had days off, and he would take us. He would go with us at times, but my uncle, Uncle Kang, he was the one. My Some of my most fond memories of the outdoors, fishing and being in the outdoors, was with him. And growing up in high school and even after high school and in my college years and after college, he and we went fishing. We were in the outdoors. I remember shooting my first dove. I was with him. So that love and that passion for the outdoors of hunting and fishing were with him. Even though Dad took me fishing, he was with us a lot of times, but it was my uncle that really set that tone and mentored me. He was the one that taught me how to tie a knot, how to tie
Right.
a lure. Uh,
And I love that. I love it specifically when guys step up to help younger men. I know you've been a big part of my journey in the outdoors. I mean, it was 10 years ago, it'll be 11 this year that you took me on my first deer hunt. And since then, I've gone elk hunting, bird hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting. I've been fishing every summer, so it's really nice kind of how that fostering of conservation can grow in the younger generation. Before we go all the way into some advice for young men, I got one more question for you, and that is for young men who maybe didn't grow up hunting or fishing or don't have a role model in their life or a father in their life who takes them hunting or fishing on a regular basis, what's a great way to get involved in that and get involved in conservation?
oh, that's a great question, Asaya. There are a lot of programs out there, but to back up a little bit, there are barriers to entry. For hunting, it's a little bit more difficult, simply because of the equipment and the expense for hunting. But there is a way into hunting. But the barrier to entry for the outdoors, fishing is an easy way to get started. Fishing is really easy, it's inexpensive uh, to get started for a lot of young guys. Just bass fishing, uh, the equipment is relatively inexpensive, and access to water, very
Yeah.
easy to do. Um, but then the next thing is ask. there are tons of guys out there that would love to mentor young guys, take them fishing and to teach them. I mean, there just are an immense amount of older guys out there that are willing to take time, that are willing to mentor. It's just a matter of asking. Guys like me, I'm more than willing to help and take time and teach and mentor. It's just a matter of, you know, people just, young guys just ask. There are a lot of guys that are in retirement that have that are looking to find people to teach to mentor. It's just a matter of asking. There are a lot of retirees that work part time in your fly shops, that work part time at Bass Pro. Get to know these guys. Befriend them. When you're out there, just start talking to them and ask them questions like, "Hey, where do you go fishing? How do you do this? How do what type of equipment do you use?" And just start talking to them and get to know them. And over time, it's like, "Hey, well, you think, I'm going to be down at the local fishing hole. Where do you go?" And just start talking to them and get to know them. And those networking. And so when you start networking, then that's how start getting to know different people. And that guy might not have the time, but he will know somebody. You know,
Hmm.
if some of you guys that are out there listening, for our listeners, if you reach out to Asaya and say, "Hey, well, Asaya, this guy Nahn, well, does he know somebody?" Yes, I absolutely know a ton of people that and I know a lot of within my network of people. I know a lot of guys that would mentor some of your listeners. It's just a matter of reaching out and just asking. Um, and that's how you get involved. Now, programs, there are a ton of programs out there for first timers that have, let's say, fly fishing. If you've never gone fly fishing, or if you've never shot a dove, or if you've never shot a deer, or if you've never shot a turkey, there are programs out there. Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, they have programs, for young hunters. Um, were youth weekends. Then there is NWTF, National Wild Turkey Federation. They have what they call the Jakes program for young hunters that you can go on a youth hunt. Now, another great program, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. They have a program now that where if you haven't, they will take you out on a hunt. If you haven't shot a bird, if you haven't shot a deer, they teach you everything you need to know, and they'll take you out. It's a nominal, it's a minimum. You pay like a minimum fee. It's not very expensive at all, but it's a minimum fee, and you can pay that fee. They take you out for like a weekend. It's camping, and they feed you. It's the real deal. It's a great experience for a weekend, and I highly recommend it. It's a great program. Um, my former manager that works there, he's still there. Great guy. He runs the program. He's a program director there. He's a great guy. He's still there. Reach out to Tennessee Wildlife Federation. The program's still going. It's real strong. So yeah, it's programs like that. You just have to know where to look and
Right.
who to reach out to.
Right. And I remember getting involved in those several years ago when I was sort of developing my love for the outdoors. And I definitely remember, especially once I was kind of on my own without a father, I was with my two younger brothers and I was with my mom, none of which really shared or currently share my love for the outdoors. My youngest
Hmm.
brother, he's starting to get a little bit into it. But at first, I was the only one in the house who was really interested in hunting
Yeah.
or fishing. And
Yeah.
I remember meeting you. You took me out for my first deer. And then, as far as fishing, I mean, I live close to the lake. I went to Walmart, bought my first fishing pole for probably $30, and I just started fishing that lake as much as I could. And I was horrible at it for a very long time. I didn't catch fish for probably 2.5 years before I figured it out. But in doing so, I'd run across people on the lake, and maybe I made a few friends like that. I had a few friends from school who would fish, and so maybe we'd get together, and slowly I'd start to pick up tricks here and there, or I'd maybe run into a guy. Fishing on the boat. I remember a great experience I had was one 4th of July. I was walking down the lake because the fireworks were about to go off on the other side, and I was fishing while I was waiting for the fireworks to start. And there was a guy on a bass boat who was just sort of fishing the same bank just from the water. And eventually he kind of approached me and he was really interested. It was amazing. He started a conversation with me, asked me how it was going, what I was throwing, and it was amazing because while we were only really talking about fishing and fishing baits and stuff like that, it felt really personal. It felt really good, like a strong connection. He ended up giving me a few lures that I still have in my bag to this day, and
Mhm.
it's just relationships like that that I know personally I've found in the hunting and fishing community that everyone who does it is typically really tight knit. It's a really close group, and
A-
fishing specifically is one of those things where you can walk down a lake, you can see a guy, and instantly start a conversation just by saying, like, what you throwing, or any luck. Something as
Absolutely.
small as that, and you can make a friend. It's really
Absolutely.
amazing, and it helped me make a ton of connections and find a lot of mentors when I was in need of it in a very casual way.
Absolutely. And and now with social media, believe it or not, with social media, there are groups out there that, there are resources like, for instance, and I don't, you know, you got to be careful with social media, but there are groups out there, the fishing groups and the hunting groups out there. There are one or two that are okay, but for the most part, you got to be real careful about the hunting and fishing groups on social media. But there are one or two of them that are okay.
Right, I found a lot of good community. I'm in a few groups on social media about hunting and fishing, but I mean, for me personally, one of my best friends today, and I know he'll be listening to this and he'll be able to pick himself out of this, but my best friend in the whole wide world, we completely bonded over hunting and fishing, and it was completely unexpected. I never expected that he was going to be the one who ended up as my best friend, but we will take weekend trips to go dove hunting, deer hunting. We take weekend trips up to the state park to go fishing now that I got that bass boat. And we'll go for a couple of days and we have the most amazing conversations just sitting on a lake. We were actually out a few weeks ago when we got that little false spring here in Tennessee where we thought it was going to be
Hmm.
warm again.
Yep.
And we were on the boat. It was a train wreck. We were taking it out for the first time since the winter ended, and I mean, batteries were dead. Stuff wasn't starting at first. The wind was
So,
horrible.
so,
We had done the basics, new fuel, check some batteries, but I mean, it was a pretty rough day. The wind, the worst part, the wind. It was so strong the trolling motor couldn't get anywhere. But anyways,
but
whole point of the story is we were sitting there on the lake, not catching squat, and we were both saying at the end of the day that was the best day I've had in a while. Just
makes for a
sitting
good
there
story though.
talking. Yeah, it makes for a great story. Everything went wrong, but still, it was one of the best days of my week and one of the best days of, I guess, my whole month.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that that hunting and fishing and conservation have played such a huge role in my life because at first it seems like a little thing, but slowly it becomes more and more. And it's something you don't realize in the moment. But like when I look back at where he and I were 3 years ago, I would have never expected this is where we ended up. So I'm really grateful for the role that's played. But, anyways, moving back sort of into mentorship and the
Yep.
role that conservation has played in that, you started as an outdoorsman and as
Mhm.
a mentor to me. You taught me how to hunt. You taught me how to fish, passed your knowledge on. But obviously today, you've become a lot more than that. You've given me tons of life advice. You've become a life mentor, like another father figure who can point me in the right direction, who I've gone to and I have questions, stuff like that. So, my question for you is what is sort of the moment in our relationship or series of moments in our relationship that it shifted from just a mentor in the outdoors to a mentor in life?
I remember that moment vividly when I found out about your relationship with a young lady.
Really?
And yeah, yeah. And I was like, wait, what? Wait a minute. Hold on. He has a young lady in his life. And I was like, well, tell me about this young lady. And so I was thinking to myself, he's he's a young man now. He has a love interest. I was like, what? Wait, what happened here? He's really starting to grow up. And that conversation went into things like, well, you know, what she like, and do you guys have shared goals and shared interests? And that was the question. Do you have shared goals and shared interests? That's when everything changed for me, and where the mentoring went from hunting and fishing to now I've got to shift gears. You know, he's growing up. Now I've got to shift my gears from not just mentoring in, you know, recreation, but in life. I need to help prepare him in life. You know, what is he going to be like as a young man in life, business, finance, college? So I'm thinking, before, he needs to learn how to do stuff, sure, but now he needs to be prepared for life. So that's kind of when it all changed for me.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because I remember that exact moment. We were sitting in the turkey blind, and you asked me a random question, and that's what came up. And yeah, it's funny because that's a very vivid memory in my
Oh
mind
yeah.
too.
Yeah, because it was very vivid. It was a very vivid moment for me because I guess it was about an hour and a half later. I had you laying on the ground outside the blind with your head down, and two turkeys were walking by 10 yards in front of you.
Yeah, I remember that. I got circled by those turkeys for like 10 minutes before I was allowed to get back up out of that grass. That sort of leads perfectly into maybe the next question I have for you, which is what should what do you think every young man should know about becoming an adult and becoming a man and moving in that sort of transitional period from a young boy who's not quite sure to a man who's got to take on the world?
Oh wow, that is a big question. What does he need to know about becoming an adult and
Yeah,
moving towards the world? Well, first, don't be in such a rush. You know,
right.
I think a lot of young men, you know, try, they rush, they rush of wanting to become an adult where, you really don't have to, don't rush it. You've got plenty of time, but there's going to come a time where you need to start preparing yourself. But definitely prepare yourself for adulthood. And some of the things that I think young men need to prepare themselves with. Um, so, first thing, financially, um, and you and I have talked about this. Financially, start your savings as soon as possible. Start, if you don't have a savings account, if you don't have a 401k, start now. If you're
Right.
16, and you have a part-time job, start your 401k. Put in the maximum amount. If you're 17 and you're working summer jobs, start a 401k. Put in the maximum amount. I think it's like 11% or something like that. Um, you work a summer job, put in the full amount. Put in as much as you can. Squirrel away as much as you can. Always put in as much as you can into your 401k and your savings. Um, the next thing, live within your means. I see a lot of young people, they get their first big career job, and the first, they want to go out and they want to buy a flashy new car. Well, you really shouldn't have to do that. Buy a reliable pickup truck like a Tacoma. You know,
Oh yeah, you know I'm all about the taco. I love my Tacoma. It's
yeah,
uh it's got
and
some
that's a
miles on it, but I love
yeah,
it.
but you know what? That Toyota pickup truck, that is a forever truck.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I
yeah,
plan on. There are people out there listening right now who know exactly what we're talking about, and they know
yeah,
that I plan on driving that thing until it doesn't drive anymore. Because I
yeah,
have so many good memories in that truck, and it's just perfect for me. And like,
yeah,
I can put all my gear in the back and go fishing for a weekend
yeah,
without any worries.
absolutely.
I love it.
here. Same here with my Toyota. It's a my forever truck, and it's 20 some odd years old. But live within your means. Don't run out and buy flashing, brand new stuff. Live within your means. That'd be the next thing. Then, so financially, live within your means. Save as much as you can. Um,
Yeah,
so
living modestly, and that's kind of funny because that living modestly and fishing don't always go together.
yeah.
I've definitely had my moments of a $100 fishing day. We're gonna sort of move back into conservation for a minute,
Okay.
and more specifically, the relation between conservation and life. And what I mean by that is, I know for me when I'm hunting, for example, when I'm dove hunting, this is a great
Hmm.
example. I will miss six birds in a row, but because I'm outside dove hunting and I'm loving what I'm doing and I'm with great people, I I don't get knocked down by that. I just keep shooting at birds and eventually I'll hit one or two and they'll come down. So I guess the question is, how is sort of the confidence factor of hunting and fishing, how has that helped you in your life? How is the lessons you've learned from hunting and fishing transferred into your real life?
The more you do, building confidence in yourself, the more you do. So what I mean by do the more you do. So get outside, do more. And what I mean by that is summit a mountain, tag a buck, tag a turkey, tag an elk, learn how to fly fish, learn how to play chess, read Moby Dick, hike the AT, the Continental Divide, the Pacific Crest Trail, hit the Transamerica Trail, swim the Atlantic, swim the Pacific. You know, do things. Those accomplishments. The more you do, you can go back and say, "Wow, man, I did all these things." Aside from tagging the elk, now you've tagged an elk. I have not,
Right.
but tagging an elk, that is a bucket list item for most men. You've accomplished something grown adults have not accomplished. How does that
Oh,
make you?
absolutely. It
That's a
makes me
comp.
feel amazing.
That's a
I
confidence.
remember I remember getting the news in
Yeah.
June of that year that I had drawn an elk tag. And I'll tell you what, moving out of that, going home from that hunt with, probably 100 pounds of meat in under that plane
You're on a high.
was incredibly amazing. I
Yeah.
felt so good knowing that I was bringing that much meat home. Not
Yeah.
only that, but I had experienced the hunt of a lifetime.
Yeah. So, and these things that I listed off, when you've done these accomplishments, I mean, and read Moby Dick. How many people have actually read Moby Dick? I haven't.
Cover to cover, very few.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Reading Moby Dick is still on my bucket list. But if I can accomplish that, I can actually say I'm one of the few people out there that I've read it cover to cover. And that's what I mean by the more accomplishments, that's confidence building. You
Right.
have this bucket list of all these things that you've done that other people haven't done. Those are confidence builders, and that bucket list or that confidence building list, whether it be big or small accomplishments, the more you do, the more you can say these are the things that I have accomplished. Those are confidence builders, but whether it be big or small, doesn't matter.
Right.
Just do
And I feel
more
like
things.
that
Get outside and do things.
right. And I think that goes very well into not just life and relation from accomplishing things into the outdoors to life, but also, in my opinion, in my personal sort of faith and soul, it's helped me. And a great example of that is this project and this podcast that I've put together because the past, what is it now, 7 years, almost 8 years, have been have been long and tedious and difficult, and there have been parts of it that I've absolutely hated, and there have been parts of it I've wanted to give up, and all of this. But kind of going back these last few weeks and the time before that, setting this all up and bringing all the stories of my mentors back together, bringing all the lessons I've learned back together, has and accomplishing sort of this sense of almost closure has
Hmm.
been incredibly gratifying for my faith and for my soul and for my confidence, because it's exactly that. It's closure. I get to look back and say, this is a chapter of my life that is coming to a close, and this is sort of the victory lap
Yeah.
of all the things that I've learned from amazing men before I go off to college next year and before I go off to sort of start my life. And it's something I'm really looking forward to continuing to build up for younger men so they can have this whole library of things come together. But it's helped me personally in my faith that just having it all in one place. And I mean, my faith, obviously, as I've talked about before, has a huge role in who I am and what I do and how I do it. But something that's truly influenced that has not only been you, but your role in my interest in conservation in the outdoors. My connection with the wildlife and with nature has helped me grow in my faith, but also more in my state of mind, because I'm sure you can relate to this. There is no moment in my life that I feel more calm or more at peace than when I'm standing in a river with a fly rod, or when I'm sitting in a tree in early fall listening to the birds and wake up in the morning. Like that moment when you're in the stand and the forest starts to wake up around you is a moment of like
Peace.
peace and serenity.
Yes.
And that's something incredible that the outdoors has done for me, that has helped me grow my faith and has helped me grow just a more optimistic state of mind. And that's was the whole goal of this episode, was to not only bring the resources for young men to get involved in the outdoors, but for them to sort of understand what those impacts can be. Even though it doesn't happen at once, it takes several times for you to enjoy something like that. Because I mean, a lot of people are like, "Wow, you go out and sit in freezing degree weather in a tree for several hours and you find that fun?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I love it." First time I did it, I hated it, but after that, it became such a good refresher.
I tell you though, that moment when the sun comes up and you close your eyes as the sun comes up, and you open your eyes as that sun comes up and peeks over the trees, and the and Mother Nature wakes up. That is there's no. I mean, that is one of the most peaceful moments in a man's mind. You know, so many men will agree.
Absolutely. And
So
whether I'm hunting or fishing or camping or sitting outside on the porch in the morning, it is
yeah,
truly one of the best feelings in the world just to feel
yeah,
sort of Mother Nature waking up and Mother Nature sort of becoming alive again. And I don't mean to get super duper cheesy, but that moment of the sun sort of coming up and coming over the darkness is a key moment in your life that I think I'm beginning to feel, at least for one of the chapters of my life, that has taken time. I remember a Meat Eater episode. Steve Ranella was talking about um, how similar sort of Mother Nature and life were, in the fact that you can go through the darkest, coldest, windiest night, but that sun will start to rise again in the morning, and the earth will start to glow, and it'll warm up slowly, and eventually it'll hit your back as you're going up that mountain, and everything will get better. That long
yeah,
hike up the mountain in the dark will get better
absolutely,
the second that sun hits your back. And
absolutely,
that's sort of where I'm feeling. And I think that's something that I want to chase more in life, and that I think a lot of people should chase in life, is that feeling of the sun hitting your back after the dark night. And to do that, you have to wake up early. You have to go out in the wind. You have to start hiking that mountain, and it sucks. And every guy who's ever done it knows it sucks. You're tripping over rocks, you're shivering, you're sweating under all your layers. But when that sun comes up, it's all worth it.
yeah. Circling back to that confidence and being in the outdoors. One of the things that my wife and I have adopted is, are we living a great story? Now, Asaya, you're only beginning your story. Your story is just begun. But
Right.
my wife and I, we adopted this thing. Live a great story. Are you living a great story? So with me, all my experiences in the outdoors, be it fly fishing, turkey hunting, spending those experiences with you out in the woods, they're all great stories, and when, I try to live my life as selfless as possible by giving back, and educating, mentoring, and I always ask this one question: am I living a great story? You know, and for the listeners out there, build your confidence by asking this question: are you living a great story? You know, your experiences, get outside, go hike up a mountain, stand on top of that mountain, and watch the sun come up or watch the sunset. Accomplish that. That is a great story. That will build your confidence because you can say, I summited that mountain. That's living a
Right.
great story. That will definitely that is a confidence builder right there. you know
Absolutely. And sort of circling back to what we were talking about earlier with that accomplishment of tagging that elk, I remember vividly. And our guest last week, Uncle Ty, he was
Uncle Todd.
with me when I shot this elk and when I was on that amazing hunt. And he'll remember that that morning we got up at probably 2:30 and we went all the way out here and we put on our packs and we started hiking up these hills up and down and up and down. And it was pretty cold and I was sweating under my jacket, which is the worst feeling. And I was tired. And we get to the top of this hill, and I'm absolutely winded. I set my pack down, and I sit there for a second before we keep going, and I look back, and it is the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen in my entire life. There's a
Mhm.
framed picture of it in my basement. You've seen that exact sunrise. I show
Yep.
everyone that picture.
Yep.
It's my most favorite and cherished moment in nature. And that made that whole morning worth it, as tired as I was, because it was just so beautiful. And the work that God does through conservation is, and through, I should say, Mother Nature, is truly incredible. The intricacies of which the woods and the water and the mountains have been knit together, and the precision just gives me eternal optimism and eternal
Oh, absolutely.
serenity. It's really where I find my most peaceful state.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Nahn, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and sharing your wisdom about conservation, life, and what it means to grow up as a man. You've had a big impact on my journey, and I know a lot of people listening will take something valuable from this conversation. Whether you realize it or not, everything we talked about with the woods relates exactly to life. Learning patience, respecting what's around you, putting in the work, and understanding that growth takes time. Those lessons don't just apply to the outdoors, they apply to becoming the man you're meant to be. I remind everyone, be intentional, seek out mentors, and don't be afraid to learn. And if you don't have a mentor yet, there will always be some here for you. Thanks again, Nahn. It's great having you on.
Thank you.